Yes, hello everyone. This video I'm going to be talking about creating an API using nodejs. And so why do we need an API for a web application? Well, this is like a nice way to both access and manipulate the data that we have in an application. So for example, in the exercises that you've been working with, we're talking about concerts. So an API gives us a nice way to select specific concerts, select concerts that have a price that is less than 200, for example. It gives us an easy way to create new concerts if we wanted to do that. It gives us an easy way to delete some concerts or even to update some of the concerts that are already in the database. So it just gives us kind of a nice interface to work with this data, which is like API is application programming interface. So it's an easy way for us to have an interface with our data. And how we're going to be using that later on is that the front end will be making requests to the API. And there the front end will, for example, ask for, like, give me all the concerts so I can render them. Or like maybe you want to add a new concert in the front end, and that addition will be talking with the API as well. So that's kind of the reason that we're going to be building out an API, is to give us an easy interface to work with our data. You have been working with APIs before in the JavaScript part. There you were just working with APIs only from the front end side of things, where a lot of the things we did there was getting some information. So one example is, for example, the astronauts, it's the movies, it's all different kind of, like the Giphy API, the weather API. All of this was us using an API from the front end part, or you could also say from the client side. But now we are on the other side. Now we're on the backend side, actually creating the functionality that gives us specific information. So for example, for the weather, there's some functionality that when we go to the URL, where it's like we specify our location, then that request goes to some server that takes in the location and finds the weather and returns that for that location. That functionality we are kind of going to right now. Of course, not with weather. Now we are working with concerts. Yes, and the good part of it is that if you have made your homework for week 2, then you have actually already started a little bit with working with kind of APIs. Yes, so let's get to it. Let's first delete this. So here we have some code. Let's comment this out and just put it in a new file here. Here we have an API. So the API, to access this API, you have to go to API/concerts. And then you get into here. So if we write, it'll be like HTTPS. This will be the URL to access this specific API. API is maybe not the right word, but a really good word that you should learn is something called endpoint. This is an endpoint, and it just gives us like a nice way to talk about what we're doing. So this is an endpoint. If we wanted to make a new endpoint, we could say like hello here, for example. Then we would have to go to hello like this, and this would be a new endpoint. Okay, So that's really good to talk about when you're talking about what you're doing. Okay. What we have been doing so far is that we have created only GET requests. And there are different kinds of requests that we can do. One is the GET request. What is a GET request? A GET request is when we access any website and press enter. What now happens is that the web browser will make a GET request to this URL. But you can do other kinds of requests. You can do something called a POST request. A POST request happens when you fill in a form. Are there any forms here? Yeah, so I don't know if this is a form. It's a bad example of a form. Hackefeature.dk, volunteer. Here we have a form. When we submit this, this will not make a GET request. It will make a POST request. And I think maybe even it says it here. So we can see here that the method is POST. You can also do something called an update and a delete request. And I feel like they're kind of explanatory. So the GET request gets information, nothing else. The POST request is used for creating new information. So creating a new concert, creating a new user, creating a new social media post. The delete request is used for, of course, deleting. It makes total sense. Delete the concert with this ID. Delete the user with this ID. And then we have the update, which is update a concert, change the title, change the date, change the price, those kind of things. And sorry, it's not called update. It's called put or patch. Just to confuse you a little more. So one of them, I think it's put, updates specific parts. So with the put request, you would say update only the title for this concert. With the patch request, you would update the whole object. So you would say, I don't even want this concert anymore. I want it all to be updated. And it might be the other way around. It might be patch. You can Google this. I always forget it. Yes, so let's try and make some of those requests. This is also now where finally Postman really comes into character, and we can take advantages of what Postman is doing. So the GET request, we've already seen this. Let's go to localhost concerts. When I do this, the web browser sends a GET request. And let me just see if we can actually see the request that goes out. All. So here you can actually see like the physical kind of request that we send. So here it has. We can see this is a request that we're sending, a GET request. And this is the URL that we want to send the request to. Yes, let's get to it. So what is this doing? Router.get. It's saying a request comes into /API/concerts. This function will only run if that request is a GET request. Okay. But it could also be a POST request. So let's try that. Okay. So now we have made a POST request here. This is another endpoint. Okay. Here we would maybe kind of write it like this. Here we have a GET request to this. Here we have a POST request. So now the question is, okay, if I want to make a GET request, I know how to do that. I can just go to a browser and I can put in the URL and it'll make a GET request, because that's what you do when you access websites. You make a GET request and you get some answer. But I want to make a post request now. I can't really do that with the browser now. So now I actually kind of have to go to Postman, unless I want to sit and make a HTML form and all that, but that would be super annoying. So let's go into Postman. You have heard a little bit about Postman. It's a way to create requests and see the response that you get here. The first thing that I would say when you make a new Postman is make a new collection. A collection is kind of a collection of requests. So we are going to be working with concerts. So let's create a new collection called concerts. And let's add a new request. Request name, let's call it Gets All Concerts. And we can go here. Let's also just delete all of these other ones that I have. Don't save. Okay. So we have a request here called Get All Concerts. It just makes a GET request to the concerts, and we can try and send it off. And here we see all the concerts. Okay, let's save that. Let's make a new request, because we wanted to make a post request. Okay, this one. And here we can choose the method that we want. You can see there's actually a lot of different methods. I don't know what all of them do, but the ones that I've described is get, post, put, patch, and delete. So we want to make a post request. And let's try and send that off. Nothing happens. What is the reason for that? It's because we're not responding with anything. But hopefully we will see that we have logged like 2 out, and then we know at least we are the right place. Okay, so we know now that this function is being called, meaning that we have now made a successful post request to the endpoint called API/concerts. Okay. Now what should we do in the post request? We could do anything. This is just program, so we could just start programming whatever we wanted to here. But if we want to keep kind of within the rules of the API, then when we do a post, we create new items. And because here we're working with concerts, this would be the place where we created a new concert. And what does it mean to create a new concert? It means to insert a new concert into the database. And we have already written the code for that. That was why I saved that. So let's go here and say that we insert this weird looking concert and then we don't do anything else. But let's see what we get here. New concert equals. Let's just call it concert, because I think that kind of makes. We could also call it inserted concert. Then it's a bit more clear. And then we say response.json with the inserted concert. I'm actually not 100% sure what the insert function will return. Maybe it's the ID, maybe it's an object of what was just inserted, but let's try and take a look at it. Let's keep having a log here just to make sure that we are hitting this. So if we see that down here, post blah 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 blah, then we know that at least we are hitting the right endpoint. So let's send it off, and it returned with an array of a number. And what would be a good guess to what this number was? It's probably the ID of the concert. Yes, we have 3 here. Cool. Let's save this request and call it insert new concert. Okay. So we have get all concerts. That should now return 3 concerts. We're happy. We have insert new concert. That is, each time it's inserting a new concert. So now we have 4. But I just don't want to insert like this random concert, because what would be the good thing about that? I want to insert the concert that I have specified from here. So how do we do that? When we create a new post request, we can specify with that request some data that we want in the request. So the get request kind of works. You can just send a request and you can get some value back. And in a get request, if you could send some data here in the query parameters and saying like title should be equal to, for example, this, or the ID should be equal to this. But when we send the post request, we can do that through the body. So they've kind of designed it. The people who designed like the HTTP protocols and all, they were like, oh, it could be cool when you post information that you can send that information somewhere that is not in the URL. So therefore, you can do that in the body. So if you click on body and then click on this one, x-www form URL encoded, that's where we can send some data through the request. These other here, raw, binary, GraphQL form data, you can try and Google them if you want to, say like post request form data versus XWW form URL encoded, and you can read a little bit about it there. It's kind of dependent on what kind of information you send. For example, if you send an image or a GIF or something else, then you want to be kind of encoding it differently. But what we want to send is just like clear strings, like a text. So it has a key and it has a value. Let's try and do title here and say hello. Now in my post request here, I want to get that data. So how do you think we could get that data? Try and write down, like, maybe you can think of something that we can do, like how do we get from here and keep continuing with developing our thing. We want to get the data that we send through the post request, so we can see it here in Node.js. Try write down what you would do now. And I'll pause it for a little bit and try to take your time with this and really think about it. Okay. I would, as we always do with the programming, I would go to Google and see what they have to help us with. Now the question is, of course, what kind of things should we Google? So we are working with Express. That's the library that's handling the request. So Express post request, that's what we're doing. And then I would say something like body, maybe even data. And I use like a bad search engine. So if we go to Google, here's a good one: how to access the request body when posting using Node.js. That sounds exactly like what we kind of want to do. There's some Express here. I see there's something with the request and something else. So this we are already doing actually. And let's see here. So they have a post just like us. Then they have a request coming in, and he's saying like console.dear request.body. So it looks like there is a key on the request called body that we can access. So we can take a look at that. The functionality that kind of does this for us, that can take the body and turn it into JSON, is these two middleware functions. You don't have to really know that much about it. It's not that relevant, but it just can be nice if you think, oh, how does that work? Well, you could look into these kind of things. So we just found out that we can do request.body. And hopefully there should be a hopefully there should be the title with the key with the title and all that in there. Let's try and send this off. We keep making concepts, but that's okay. So we have here the title hello. So that's nice. So now I want to stress that you have to separate these things. Just like I'm now doing, I got the insert to work. Okay, I had done that already. But like the way of thinking, the way you should be thinking is that first, what was the first thing I did? I didn't start any programming. I just logged to here. I just wanted to make sure that we're hitting the right function. Okay, that's the first step. Are we even hitting the right function? Now the next step, I wouldn't start thinking about anything with express or requests or responses or anything. I just want to see how I can insert a new concept using JavaScript. This is kind of just pure JavaScript because I don't even need to respond here. I could be running this just in another file that is not connected to Express or Node or anything, because I'm just inserting some totally random data and it doesn't matter at all. When you have that working, now you can start connecting the things. Now we can say, okay, but I didn't just want to create some random concept with this like weird name. I want to create the concept from the request I sent from Postman. Now you're connecting things, okay? But do it one step at a time. If you do too much at once, you will get lost and you will have a hard time figuring out where are you in the process, what are you struggling with, what is it you're trying to achieve, okay? So take it aside, take one step at a time. Very important. Okay, so the title, I want to say request.body.title. Okay, I could even, if I wanted to be more, I could say concert title equals this. To make sure that it's working, I log it out before and then I use it here. Like now it's more clear. I'm not doing so many things at once. Okay, let's try and do that. So we send off the request. Uh-oh. It looks like we're not responding. Oh, that's because we're just not responding. So hopefully this should have created the concept with the hello title. So now how can we test this was inserted? Please try and write down the question for that. How can we test that we created a new concept with the title of hello? Yes, we can do that some different ways. One way would be to just go to the database and take a look. So we can say like select all the concepts that we have. And then we can see here that the sixth concept that we had the title of hello. and that came from Postman. So Postman, Node.js, database. We could also do it here, where we just see all the concepts. And down here we can see that the last concept that we had was the one with the title hello. Okay. Yes. So, like now we're so far that we can actually start creating all of the concept through Postman. I'm not going to do that here because I think you know how, or you can figure that out. You just need to make new keys and insert that. One thing that can be a little weird is the date. How can I specify the created at date here in Postman? And for that, go to Google and look it up and try and see if you can make it work. I'm not gonna give you all the answers. Yes. So you also have to create some other endpoints. You have to create a delete endpoint. You have to create a put endpoint. And let me just go to the exercise and see what it says here. So you see you have a get request to API/concepts, returns all concepts. It's doing that. Then we have a post request that adds a new concept. That's kind of what we nearly did. Then we have another get request where you do like /API/concepts/ID. So that would look kind of like this too here. And then we would return this concept here that has ID too. And you have to create this functionality. But this is a new endpoint that you have to create. Then there's a put where you update the concept by ID. So you say the ID with the concept with ID 2, I want to update that. And this one is another endpoint that deletes the concept with this ID. Okay, and yeah. So I'm not so much, now I'm explaining a little bit the exercise, but this is also what you kind of have to do when you create a new API. It's creating the different endpoints that are relevant to it. And now we're talking about concepts. We could be talking about users. We could be talking about meals, which is some of the homework that you're working with, and so on and so on. But what is tricky about this is connecting everything, okay? Like you have Postman that makes a request to Node.js, and that comes in, and then you talk with Next.js, and then you respond with something. But as I said, split it up into different points. Split the task up. Sometimes I feel it's very helpful for me to like make kind of a plan, like an implementation plan. So it's like, first I need to figure out how to insert objects into Knex. Okay. When I have figured that out, it's very easy for me to say like, check, did I do that or did I not achieve that? The next thing that I do is I need to send some data through a post request. Okay. Now I figure out how that works, but I separate it. So first I figure out how to do this, then I figure out how to do this, and then in the end I connect them. And the connection was what I did here, where we are inserting some element and I'm connecting it to the request body that I got from the post request. Okay. Yes, I think I've hit all my points here. So you should be ready now to create your own API. Yeah, good luck with it.